8 years ago, Oxfam apologised after it was revealed that some staff hired sex workers while deployed in Haiti after the devastating 2010 earthquake, raising serious questions about safeguarding and culture within the organisation.
We can offer such desperately needed assistance.
In April 2024, Dr. Halima Begum was appointed Chief Executive of Oxfam in the UK, tasked with tackling a funding deficit. A restructure led to the loss of 140 jobs. In December, she resigned after a review found serious issues with her leadership, behaviour and decision-making. The claims of racism and bullying that you allege in your claim in the Employment Tribunal, just set out some specific examples. Who was being targeted?
So within 12 weeks of arriving in the organisation, I had a formal apology from the union for its behaviour towards me. The very last two board meetings, I was subjected to both sexism and racism from board members. Just to give you another example, in the middle of the restructure, a male member from the senior team called the all-female leadership team a bunch of shits.
You make pretty serious claims in your Employment Tribunal claim about what you call a toxic anti-Semitic culture. Just unpack why. Where's the evidence for that?
It's important to obviously work around the rule of law and maintain that the international rule of law must not be compromised. But we have to show consistency with other crises that are taking place in the world. And it always felt as though we were disproportionately working around the crisis in Gaza. But other examples include quite strong pushback when we were not ready yet to use the word genocide, because to use the word genocide, it has to be something that we arrive at with consultation and evidence and good legal advice. And to try and use that term before we're ready as an organisation feels quite risky to me. But
this is obviously to do with Gaza and what the events in Gaza.
To do with Gaza.
What did that make you conclude about the organisation?
That essentially it was very hard to hold on to neutrality and impartiality. And I say that as a Muslim woman, so that was very hard to navigate.
So into all of this, you embark on a cost cuts to try and address the financial situation. 140 staff were made redundant. And after that, there's an anonymous letter complaining that the cost cuts that you oversaw in your position caused, and I quote, widespread animosity and upset. What was your response to that letter?
Our response to that letter at the time was that we understand that people are worried about losing their jobs. Of course, it was an anonymous letter demonstrating considerable anxiety and upset at the whole organisation. What I was shocked to see, though, was that I was the only person reviewed and investigated as a result of that letter, despite the fact that other senior members were named in the letter, particularly another white female colleague.
Since you joined the organisation, you became involved in quite a sort of tempestuous relationship with the chairman, Charles Garassa. There was a board dinner, wasn't there, where things became quite tense. Just tell us what panned out there.
The chairman was giving a speech to the board participants at dinner. He talked about a meeting where he was invited to as the chair of Oxfam, and he was asked to bring along his executive director, as in me, to that meeting. And he sort of laughed at that moment to say, well, I told them that, you know, that would be like me taking my child to work. And I was really upset, Kathy. I'm a 53-year-old woman. I'm certainly not his child.
How did you feel at that moment?
I felt humiliated, and even more so because it wasn't private.
You know, could he have meant it as a joke, however ill-advised?
I think it was so patronising and so demeaning that I don't think we can dismiss something like that as a joke.
Not long after that, the chair asked for a 360 review, so feedback from staff, and that culminated in a board meeting later that month in which trustees expressed concern about your performance, your communication, a lack of transparency in decision-making, and what they described as making decisions on the hoof. How would you describe what was going on here?
But what was interesting about those concerns, Kathy, was that nobody raised any of those concerns with me.
So what do you think was happening then?
Well, I think I was set up for an investigation that was predetermined to see me out of the organisation.
So After this falling out, there was a review by an independent firm which reportedly found serious issues in your leadership behaviour and decision making, including, and I quote, breaches of organisational processes and values, and again, a quote, inappropriate interference into safeguarding and integrity investigations. What was your response to those findings?
Well, they were never really shared with me, Kathy. So there was no natural justice in this process.
So when did they speak to you?
Never. So I was quite shocked to see allegations of this kind for the first time in the newspapers.
That was the first you heard about it?
Yes. And in this day and age, if that is not a witch hunt, I don't know how and where else we would describe a witch hunt.
Nevertheless, the board decided unanimously on the 12th of December at a meeting to terminate your employment, citing an irretrievable breakdown in trust and confidence in your leadership role. I mean, if you were blameless, why did they come to this decision unanimously?
I was forced to resign on December the 14th because the board did not give me the opportunity to respond to the findings.
But they unanimously decided that.
Well, one of the trustees has subsequently spoken out to say that he voted for the resolution based on the fact that he felt it was unsafe for me to stay in the organisation. With the exception of 2 weeks at the beginning of my tenure, it has always felt unsafe.
Unsafe, just explain what you mean by that.
The minority of staff who had a very toxic culture in the way they operated, which then affected the whole organisation.
Just set out for us the impact this has had on you.
The very public nature of this fallout has been incredibly hard to bear, being accused of all sorts and having no chance to reply or rebut any of these allegations. It's been devastating.
In response, Oxfam GB told us,
these claims represent one individual's perspective and are strongly disputed by Oxfam GB. To date, we have still not received Dr. Begum's Employment Tribunal claim. We have a zero-tolerance approach to discrimination, harassment and abuse of power in all areas of our work, including racism, anti-Semitism and sexism. It would be inaccurate and misleading to characterise Oxfam as a racist organisation. We abhor anti-Semitism. We unequivocally and categorically reject any allegation of anti-Semitism which runs counter to Oxfam's core humanitarian principles of impartiality and humanity.
A spokesperson for Charles Garassa, who stepped down as chairman of Oxfam GB last year, said,
these allegations are completely spurious. The Oxfam board's unanimous decision to dismiss Halima Begum was taken some weeks after Mr Garassa had completed his term of office and was made following a large number of complaints about her from across the organisation over an extended period.